It was a cold Monday morning, the kind that made the streets look tired and the people quieter than usual. The sky was a dull grey, and a thin fog clung to the windows of Maple Leaf Cafe, a small corner shop that smelled of roasted beans and rain-soaked pavement. Inside, a young waitress named Emma wiped down the tables with careful strokes, humming softly to herself, trying to ignore the ache in her back. Her uniform was slightly faded, her shoes scuffed from long hours on her feet, and her hands rough from washing too many dishes in hot water. But her smile, that warm, genuine smile, never left her face. To the regular customers, she was known as the girl who never complained, even when the tips were small and the nights were long. Emma's life wasn't easy. Her mother was sick at home, fighting a long illness that drained both their savings and her spirit. Rent was due in a week, and her pay would barely cover half of it. Yet even with all her struggles, Emma carried hope, a quiet dream of returning to college one day, to study business and build a better life for herself and her mom. Every time she passed the local university on her way to work, she whispered to herself, "Someday." The bell above the cafe door jingled softly, pulling her out of her thoughts. An old man stepped inside, his figure slightly hunched against the cold. His coat was faded and too big for him, the edges frayed. A wooden cane supported his slow steps as he made his way to the counter. His hands trembled slightly as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a few coins. "Just a small coffee, please," he said quietly, his voice gentle but tired. I don't have enough for anything else." Emma glanced at the coins and felt a pang in her chest. She could tell he hadn't eaten properly in days. His eyes were kind but weary, the kind that had seen too much hardship and too little kindness. Without thinking twice, she smiled softly and said, "Don't worry about it, sir. This one's on me." The old man blinked in surprise. "Oh no, I couldn't." "You can," Emma interrupted gently, pouring him a fresh cup. "Everyone deserves a warm drink on a cold morning." She added a little extra cream and slid the cup toward him, her heart feeling lighter for reasons she couldn't explain. The old man looked at her for a long moment, his eyes glistening. Then he whispered, "Thank you, young lady. You've got a good heart." Emma just smiled again and went back to work, unaware that this simple act of kindness would soon change her life forever. The old man stared at Emma, his faded blue eyes filled with disbelief. He looked down at the cup she was pouring and then back at her face, kind, gentle, and sincere. "You'd pay for my coffee?" he asked softly, as though the words felt too heavy to believe. Emma nodded without hesitation. "Sometimes," she said with a small, comforting smile, "a warm drink is more important than money." The man's lips trembled into a faint smile of his own. There was a pause, that quiet moment between strangers where something deeper passes, something more than words. Emma didn't ask where he came from or why his coat looked older than time itself. She simply turned, poured the steaming coffee into a clean cup, and gently set it on the counter. "Here you go, sir," she said, then glanced toward the pastry case. "Actually, wait." She reached inside, picked up a soft muffin, and placed it beside the cup. "Something sweet, too, on the house." The man blinked in surprise. "You don't have to do that." "I know," she replied, "but I want to." He accepted the gesture, his fingers shaking slightly as he wrapped them around the warm cup. The smell of coffee filled the space between them, rich and comforting. He took a slow sip, closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long while felt seen. From his corner table, the old man sat quietly, sipping his drink and eating the muffin in small bites. He watched Emma move around the cafe, greeting customers with her easy smile, remembering orders by heart, and slipping extra sugar packets to a little boy whose mother couldn't afford dessert. She didn't rush anyone or sigh when someone spilled milk. Instead, she'd simply laugh and say, "No worries, it happens to all of us." To him, she wasn't just a waitress. She was a light in a dim little cafe, the kind of person the world desperately needed more of. As the morning rush faded and the cafe grew quieter, the man slowly rose, placing his empty cup back on the counter. Emma turned toward him, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You got a good heart, young lady. Don't ever lose it." Emma smiled warmly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Take care, sir, and stay warm out there." He nodded, eyes shining with a strange mix of gratitude and admiration, then stepped outside into the chilly air. What Emma didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, was that the humble old man who had just left was Mr. Leonard Haynes, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city. Disguised in simple clothes, he had been traveling the streets to see how people treated those who had nothing. And in that tiny cafe, a young waitress had shown him the one thing even his billions could never buy: genuine kindness. The morning after the quiet encounter with the old man, the cafe buzzed with its usual rhythm. The soft hiss of the coffee machine, the clinking of cups, and the smell of freshly baked pastries filled the air. Emma tied her apron and smiled at the regulars who greeted her warmly. To her, it was just another day, another chance to serve, smile, and make ends meet. But outside, something unusual was happening. A sleek black limousine pulled up in front of Maple Leaf Cafe. Its glossy surface reflected the morning light, standing out starkly against the worn brick buildings on the street. People passing by slowed down, curious. Expensive cars rarely stopped in this part of town. Emma noticed the car through the window and frowned slightly. "That's odd," she murmured to herself, brushing crumbs from a table. Moments later, the cafe door opened, and two men in dark suits stepped inside. They looked completely out of place among the chipped mugs and old wooden floors. The taller man scanned the room, his sharp eyes landing on Emma. "Miss Emma Carter?" he asked. She froze, startled. Yes, that's me." Without a word, he handed her a crisp white envelope sealed with gold initials, L. "It's from Mr. Haynes," the man said politely. Emma blinked in confusion. I think you've got the wrong person," she stammered. "No mistake, ma'am," he replied with a faint smile. "He asked us to deliver this personally." Her hands trembled as she took the envelope. The paper felt heavy, expensive, the kind of thing someone like her never touched. She carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. Her heart began to race as her eyes moved across the words. "Dear Emma, I came to your cafe yesterday, though not as the man you might expect. Your kindness reminded me that wealth means nothing without compassion. You gave freely, expecting nothing in return, and that is what true humanity looks like. I would like to offer you a full scholarship to the business school I fund, and a management position at my company upon graduation. With gratitude, Leonard Haynes." Emma read the letter twice, her vision blurring as tears welled up. The room felt suddenly still. She looked up at the men, her voice trembling. "Mr. Haynes, the old man from yesterday?" They nodded. "Yes, ma'am. He asked us to tell you he never forgets kindness." Emma pressed the letter to her chest, her heart swelling with disbelief and gratitude. The man she had helped out of simple kindness, a stranger with trembling hands and kind eyes, was offering her the chance to rewrite her future. For the first time in years, Emma felt the weight of hope, real, beautiful, life-changing hope. Months passed like pages in a story Emma could hardly believe she was living. The little cafe where she once poured coffee and wiped tables now felt like a distant memory, yet it remained forever etched in her heart. With Mr. Haynes's scholarship, she had enrolled in the prestigious Haynes School of Business, studying harder than she ever had in her life. Every late night and every early morning reminded her why she was doing it, not for money or status, but for her mother, for her dreams, and for that quiet belief that kindness always finds its way back. Her professors admired her dedication, She wasn't just smart, she was compassionate, the kind of student who helped others succeed too. And every time she faced a challenge, she thought of the old man with the trembling hands and kind eyes, and how a simple cup of coffee had changed everything. Then one bright morning, Emma found herself standing before the towering glass building of Haynes Enterprises. The golden sunlight reflected off the sleek windows, and her reflection stared back, not in an apron this time, but in a crisp navy suit and polished shoes. Her hair was neatly tied, her posture straight, but her humble smile remained the same. The receptionist greeted her warmly. "Mr. Haynes is expecting you," she said. Emma took a deep breath and stepped into the grand office on the top floor. Behind a mahogany desk stood Leonard Haynes, the very man who had once sat in her cafe disguised as a poor old man. He looked at her with pride and affection, his silver hair shining under the morning light. "Emma," he said with a smile that reached his eyes, "you earned this, not because you served coffee, but because you served humanity." Emma's eyes glistened. "I only did what felt right," she said softly. Mr. Haynes nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "And that," he said, "is exactly what true leaders do. The world doesn't need more people chasing wealth. It needs more people who lead with heart." He handed her a folder, her official appointment letter as Junior Director of Community Development. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she accepted it. Outside the window, the city stretched far and wide, busy, restless, full of stories waiting to be changed by kindness. As she looked out, Emma realized something profound. She hadn't just changed her own life. She had proven that even the smallest gesture, a smile, a coffee, a moment of compassion, could ripple through the world in ways unimaginable. From that day on, Emma Carter was no longer just a waitress. She became a living reminder that one small act of kindness can indeed change a life, and sometimes even change the world.